Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Reese. I just wanted to give you a video just talking about the idea of challenging the divine right of kings that we see during the Enlightenment period. So with that being said, let's get started. Alright, so to start off this whole entire thing, we do have to answer this question. How did Enlightenment thinkers challenge monarchs and install their own popular opinions? And that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be challenging the status quo right now, which is the divine right of kings. And with that being said, we are going to move on to the two opposing viewpoints of this time period. So the first one that we're going to see is by King James I. Now when it comes to King James I, he talks about divine right of kings. And basically what that means is that the power that the king has is actually given to him by God himself. And to challenge the king is to challenge God. And if you are a religious Christian in Europe at this time, guess what? This is not what you want to do. You don't want to take off God by challenging the person that he put into power. Now, John Locke is going to actually do this. Now, when John Locke actually sits there and challenges this, he believes in something called natural rights. And if we all know this already, but it's life, liberty, and property. And we'll get into more of this tomorrow. But the thing is, he believed that the power wasn't given to the king by God. All right, the power was given to the king by the consent of the people that he is ruling. And so we get this very challenging viewpoint between these two people. All right, and so much so that King James actually tries to rebuttal this a little bit with some art that we see during this time period. So this is actually an image of King Charles I of England. All right, he this is an image of him getting his right. So basically what I'm going to ask you here, and this is your extra credit for the day, if you email me answering this question, how does this show the idea of the divine right of kings? All right, you are going to get some bonus points, okay, on this assignment. So that is that. This is just a little bit of overview. So right now what I want you guys to do is that I want you to go to the doc that says King James the First primary source reading. Okay, it looks something like that. So I'm going to pause the video really quick. Alright, so you should see something along the lines of like this. Alright, so King James is going to argue that kings are like gods in his primary source reading. Okay, so this is a big graphic organizer that we're going to actually cover together. And then I'm going to let you work on the John Locke one in a little bit. Okay, so with that being said, if you guys actually click on this link right here, all right, the excerpt from King James's speech, you can actually go down to the second page where he does talk about this whole idea of divine right of kings and kind of rationalizes it a little bit. So with that being said, if you guys want to kind of listen to a little bit of the speech, this right here is actually in a video kind of going over it. All right, this is a British Broadcasting Company website that kind of goes over King James as well. But what I want you guys to do first is that I want you guys to read this right here. And when you read this, I want you to highlight the three major principles that kind of illustrate this monarchy and how God gives power to the kings. So pause the video right now and please do that. Alright, so hopefully that you have done that right now. What I actually got were these three things that he talks about. I'm just kind of talking about the principles that kind of illustrate this idea of divine right of kings. Alright, so the first one that we get here is in the scriptures, kings are called gods, and so their power after a certain relation compared to the divine power. Okay, so this is basically really him just sitting there and saying that, the Bible says that kings are like gods. Okay, we see that a little bit in the Old Testament and a little bit in the New, but that's kind of like his rationale there. So that's the first thing that we're going to do. Now, if you go up to where it says reason, all right, reason number one, all right, we're going to actually put the Bible says that kings are like gods. Okay, that's one of his reasons for it. All right, so now we're going to look for reason two that kind of supports the central claim. All right, don't worry, we're going to get to the central claim in a little bit. Okay, so The second thing that he talks about is that he says that kings are like the fathers of family, or the fathers of his people, the political father of all things. All right, so when we go to reason number 2, we can say something along the lines of like kings are considered the political father of the people that he rules. Okay, so that's the second thing that he kind of rationalizes a little bit. All right, and so let's lead to reason 3. Okay, so reason 3 that we see right here, where it says kings are compared to the head of a microcosm of the body of man. All right, if you want to look into that, that's just basically translates to something along the lines of like kings are kind of like the head of this body that we call government and that what we call society. All right, they're the ones who do all the different mixings and all the different ways of doing things, I guess. They're the decision makers and everything along those lines. So we're going to put that as kings are like the head of the body of man, aka the political people. Okay, so there is that. Now, this all supports his central claim, and he actually probably read it up here. Okay, this first one right here. And what I mean by claim is that I mean like what's his main idea? What's his main thing that he is trying to argue? And this first paragraph says, or this first sentence I should say, it says, the state of monarchy is the supremest thing upon earth. For kings are not only God's lieutenants upon earth and sit upon God's throne, but even by God himself they are called gods. Okay, so basically what he is saying is that kings are justly called gods for that they exercise a manner or resemblance of like some type of god or godly power. So I'm actually going to take this and put it as my claim. All right, so we have that. So you can take a moment and actually write this down if you want. All right, just so that you have that. All right, pause the video if you want to write that down. That's the very educational way of saying it. If you want to say it a little bit more simpler, basically kings are justly called gods because, you know, God gives them that power to be on that God status. Okay, so that's kind of the claim that we see here. Now, think of this like an ACE method, all right? This is the answer that he gives, that gods are, you know, justly called gods because they're given the power to do so. Here's all of his reasonings as to why, or his citations, or that like C column, okay? So the thing is, we have to do one last thing in the ACE formula, all right? We have to give evidence kind of explaining like why a reason actually is a thing and why our reasons actually work, okay? So when it comes to this, what I want you guys to do now is that I want you to read through the rest of this. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's very thick, but you guys can do it. I have the utmost faith in you. All right, so take a moment, pause the video, and we will get started on that in a little bit. All right, pause the video now. Okay, so hopefully that you guys have actually spent a little bit of time reading this. You may notice that each paragraph kind of goes with each point, all right, and they kind of explain their reasonings in each paragraph in order actually, which is kind of nice. So when it comes to this, we're actually going to go through the first reason, which talks about the Bible says the kings are like gods. All right, we can use some bullet points here to make our lives a little bit easier. But when it comes to this, if we go down to this paragraph right here, we're going to be reading a lot about how the king is justified by the Bible to, you know, be a part of God. Okay, so when it comes to this, first thing that we're going to actually look at is this paragraph right here, this part of the paragraph right here. All right, so basically what this says is that God has this power to create and destroy. All right, and since the king is basically an extension of God, the king can also sit there and create and destroy. All right, he can create new lands for his people, and he can also kill people as well. So we're going to write that part down right here. All right, so we're going to say something along the lines of just like God can create and destroy, so can the king with creating new lands, and also killing people if he so desires. Okay, so that's one part of what he says in this whole entire thing. He does justify later on in this first paragraph, just kind of talking about like how the Bible is kind of his rationale. Like if the Bible says it, the Bible says it. All right, so he justifies his reasoning by using the Bible. Okay, so there is that. To kind of give you a little bit of an idea of what that is all about. So this is what I want you to do now. I want you to pause the video, and I want you to sit there, and I want you to go to reason 2. And I want you to go to the second paragraph and read about his evidence and what he explains with his reasoning, where he says kings are considered political fathers. Okay, so take a moment, pause the video now, and I'll get back to you in a little bit. So hopefully that you guys have done reason 2, and now you are looking at what I kind of put down. So and kind of compare this with what you actually said as well. Alright, so what I put down is in this paragraph, he talks about how a king is kind of like the father to his people, the people that he rules. And so at the time, this kind of is rationalized because at the time people thought the husband or the father was the one who actually was given power by God to be able to do certain things, such as create new children. All right, and God gave him this power to be able to, you know, make children because, you know, yeah, that's the thing I'm not going to get into. But he says that God gave him that right and that idea of making him quote unquote stronger, or what they believed as stronger. So when it comes to this, that's kind of what we get from that as kind of like evidence that actually supports his reasoning. Okay, so this leads to the last one, and this one I'm not going to be able to help you with. You are going to have to do that on your own, so that you'll have to go to the third paragraph here and actually read it a little bit and kind of give me evidence kind of supporting his claim where he says kings are like the head of the body of the political man, or the head of the political people, to say the least. So take a moment, pause the video, and actually do that. Hopefully you guys have done that third one. Again, I'm not helping you on that one. That was all on your own. But this is what I want you to do now. I want you to kind of sit there and kind of tell me the flaws of King James's reasonings that he gives. What things did he sit there and like, that doesn't just sit right with me, to say the least. So what are some things that are kind of like flaws when it comes to King James's reasonings? All right, take a moment and actually answer that question. So hopefully you are done with King James as the first primary source about the divine right of kings. Now we are going to go to John Locke being on government and talking about government and the monarchy. So when it comes to John Locke, there's a couple of primary sources that we're going to actually read about. And if you click on this, you can actually scroll down to here, and you can talk, or you can read a little bit about what he believed. And this is going to work really similar to what we already talked about. Okay, so when it comes to this, do me a favor and read for the central claim and then try and find those 3 reasons. All right, do that right now. All right, so hopefully you've gotten all 3 of those reasons. These are the reasons that I actually got that are the main things that we see here. So the first thing that he talks about, how, you know, this is just not really like a thing, I should say. Oh, I forgot the claim. Hold on, give me a second. I gotta go to my key. Alright, so hopefully you got the claim that government's power can only come from the people freely consenting to it. And that's kind of the central claim that he is going to give. Alright, now, when it comes to some of his reasons that are supporting his central claim, or his, you know, ace or answer to, is that the absolute monarchy is inconsistent with what we call civil society, aka the society that we all live in. Our reason 2 for the people have to consent to being governed is that paternal power does not legitimize political power. Alright, it comes from nature. And that's one of the biggest things that he talks about here, is that this idea of like the king being the father of the people, is it doesn't legitimize anything. It just says that you think that, and that's it. All right, so that's what that comes from. And then reason 3 is that people must freely consent to being governed. Okay, so that is that. Now, this is what I want you to do after this. I want you to sit here and go through the evidence that supports each of these reasons, or the things that you can elaborate on a little bit more, to kind of go over some of these things that are reasons that support his central claim. And then from there, I want you to answer this question, which is, how does Locke's reasoning compare to King James I's? Okay, so that is what you're doing for today. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to contact me at any time. I will be here for you. So with that being said, I hope you have a great day, and I will see you guys later. Bye.